Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So after all the videos I put out, after all my career for this early 3 years into it, I've done a lot of blonding. You guys are used to seeing, level 10s, you're used to seeing level 9s, you're used to seeing a nice dimensional blonde, you're used to seeing a really healthy blonde, you're used to seeing all these really poppin' money piece blondes. But today I wanted to do something a little different that I do behind the chair, you just don't see it very often, and that is what I like to call a sombre. Now today I have my best friend Catherine here, and we always do a beautiful sombre on her, and in order to get that you can use the balayage technique. You can also use what I like to call the TEASY light technique. Now a lot of people are misinformed and miseducated from hairdressers that they go to, and unfortunately that sucks, but I feel like a lot of us need to really educate ourselves even more because we're going around spreading false information, having clients think that a balayage is a look when it's absolutely not. A balayage is a technique that is used by your stylist to achieve that sombre rooted look that you are expecting. Balayage is also hand painting, which means there's no foils, there's no meshes, and clay lightener is required. There's no balayaging in foils, there's no balayaging with regular lightener, and a lot of stylists have, made their own balayage of what they think it is, and unfortunately, they miseducate their clients. So a lot of times I have clients coming in saying, I want a balayage, I want this look of the balayage. I feel bad, but I have to tell them, listen, a balayage is a technique. It doesn't matter what you want. A balayage can be me going in and painting 3 lines across your head. As long as clay lightener was used with no foils and it was hand painted, that's a balayage. So to get that sombre look that people usually call a balayage, when clients want to come in and get that rooted look and that dimensional look, I tend to reach for my TEASY light technique. Now TEASY lights are where I take the hair in bigger sections and I tease the hair back. What that does is it pushes the shorter hair up, and as I paint, you could think of it as painting in a foil. I do like to do the Y's and the W's, and that's gonna help me get better lift because in a foil with a regular lightener. I tried the, hand painting balayage like everybody did in the beginning, but we all found the same problem, is that clay lighteners, no matter which brand, it's hard to get lift. The most average you'll get is about 3 levels, where a regular bleach can get you between 7 to 9 levels. So that's a big difference. So that's why I tend to do TEASY lights, paint in the foil, using regular lightener. Today I have my client Catherine here, and we do her hair every 6 to 9 months, and we touch it up for her TEASY light. And then she's able to go every 3 weeks coming in just to get her permanent color because she is a lot of gray naturally, and she hates even the sight of one gray. So she doesn't have to come in all the time, but she chooses to. Not everybody has to come in every 3 weeks, but that's just a quick hour and a half, root touch up with just color, blow dryer, and she's out the door. Every 2 times we'll do a toner on the ends to keep that color really beautiful, and every 6 to 9 months we'll do her TEASY light retouch. Well, today I have her in my chair and I'm going to show you guys what it's like to do a very dimensional TEASY light, in depth, all the knowledge that you need, all the tips and tricks. I always slightly touched on TEASY lights on my channel, but I'm actually going to dig real deep and give you as much information as possible on my way. I love to do it for somebody who's looking for a lot of dimension, a lot of depth still left in. So usually I'm telling you guys add more foils and foil as much as you can. Today I'm going to be telling you to calm down and try not to foil too much. If you want to learn, then keep watching. Also, if you haven't joined the family yet by subscribing, definitely do so and hit the bell. Also, if you like vlogs or you want to get to know me a little bit better, I recently started a vlogging channel for entertainment purposes, just to document my life because it's crazy and you guys only usually see here in these 4 walls, so it's actually inviting you guys into my daily life. That is linked down below. I am Brett Ryan, and I would really appreciate it if you guys can go subscribe and hit the bell to start kicking it off so I can put out more content. Alright guys, without further ado, let's get into today's video. Hey guys, welcome back. So Catherine's back today and we're going to be breaking down what technique I love to use for my clients who want a sombre ombre kind of look. It's what I personally like to do, and it's called the TEASY light technique. I basically go in and tease the hair, then paint in the foil. Difference between this and a true balayage is that I'm using regular lightener instead of clay, and I'm using foils instead of hand painting. I am not a huge fan of balayage. I know a lot of stylists who are great at it, but it's just not my strong suit, and I don't really like the technique. So 98% of the time when I'm doing a root retouch or paint between, you guys see me go in between every foil and do so once all my foils are complete. Today I'll be doing it a little bit differently than I usually will. I'm going to take Goldwell Topchic 4NN with 20 volume and retouch her roots first, then begin my foiling afterwards. The reason I don't mind doing it this way in this type of situation is because Catherine gets a real rooted look, and except for the money pieces, a lot of the rest of the hair won't be touched by lightener. Don't get me wrong, if you want to blend that lightener into the permanent color, by all means, for a seamless blend, do so. You absolutely can. Bleach will always eat through everything. It's just sometimes it will not process as much as it possibly can, and it will remain a little bit warm.
Sitting throwing rocks across the pavement, hoping it'll cave in and swallow me whole. Wondering why my mind keeps on spinning. This isn't how living to me was told. Why am I like this? Something's always amiss. Can't put my finger on it, but it's there. Wait for it to subside, but my mind won't apply. Waiting for the clear. Is it bad? Sometimes I like it when I lose control. There's something in it that's so beautiful.
So with TEASY lights, it's just like anything else. It's artistry. But instead of having more structure and repeated steps, I like to put a different touch on each foil and section. I hope that makes a little bit of sense to you guys. So what I'm going to do now that we've applied her root color, I'm going to comb it through, then section her out, and begin foiling with money pieces. Even though I normally leave bigger subsections with TEASY lights and do a little bit more traditional stitch, I always like doing face framing highlights using baby lights. I won't tease because I want these places to go higher, and then I'll tone them down and blend them later on when we get to the root smudge. So for my lightener today, I'm using Schwarzkopf Blonde Me. If you guys are true OG Brett Ryan supporters, you'll remember that Blonde Me was my ride or die for the first 2 years of my career. I now love and use Goldwell Oxycure religiously for the past year, but every now and then I'll pick up a couple of Blonde Me containers. I did so several weeks ago, and I'm now editing these videos about 2 months behind, so I'm playing catch up, so you'll see a lot of Blonde Me being used over the next few videos, but I still use Oxycure religiously. The one issue I do have with Blonde Me that stops me from using it always is when someone's hair really is dense and thick, the heat causes the foils to swell a lot. I now know who I can and can't use it on, and it only happened about 3 or 4 times, but now I know. I love Goldwell Oxycure so much because of the consistency, and it never ever swells, and I love that very much. If you've never tried Oxycure by Goldwell yet, get on it, you guys. Yes, it's pricey like all Goldwell products, but it works so well, it's totally worth it. So now I've wrapped up Catherine's hairline, so we're moving into the TEASY lights. Last time we retouched her TEASY lights about 7 or 8 months ago. We just did that with lightener. We didn't add a Lowlight or any paint between, well, except for the root retouch. Today I am, and I'm going to also leave bigger subsections because we want to add a lot more dimension, and that will also make the TEASY lights pop a lot more. So for her low light, I'm using 4NB, 6NB, which makes a 5NB, and 5N. I'm using 10 volume as I always do when using Shades EQ for low lights or all over color. Anytime I'm toning, I do use the dedicated processing solution. I just found throughout my career that when 10 volume is added, it helps it stick a little bit better and gives more longevity. So clearly I'm not going to tease the lowlights, and I don't want to add a little bit of dimension. I want to add a lot of dimension. So I'm going to do 1 teasy light to 1 low light. When I do the low light, I'm just doing a regular traditional highlight stitch instead of a baby light stitch. This I'm doing because it will give a little bit more dimension. If you really pay close attention, you'll see when I take my teasy light section, I do something I rarely ever do, and that's split it in half again, then tease the top half and leave the other half as a subsection. This is how they teach it in hair school. I'm just usually always packing my foils in tightly and leave a little bit of whatever I weaved out. And that's not how I do it with teasy lights. I want more dimension, so I leave a bigger subsection. You guys, I also wanted to say that even though I'm doing it this way, I still, if you notice, always leave a little bit of hair in my foil. You can do any look you want, but always take smaller sections that go into the actual foil, especially with lightener, because the better it will lift. If you take big, thick sections and try to apply, it's going to take more product, more time. It's going to take longer to process because it's going to be uneven. So I always take smaller amounts of hair in the foil. You can always play with the way the look comes out by the amount of hair you leave in between. You just seen I just split it in half. I'm not doing huge subsections, but I'm doing bigger subsections than I normally would for a typical baby light. So now I'm teasing. I'm actually applying my product. I'm going to feather up. And the reason I love teasing for TEASY lights is because once we actually bring that hair that was teased up down, it's going to help by breaking that line up a little bit more, even though when I feather up, it's naturally blending anyway. Here we go. You see me highlighting a traditional stitch, applying a regular highlight like I normally would, but it's a low light. Applying my product, I'm still doing smaller amounts of hair in the foil. I'm going to fold this one up regularly, and then I'm going to take another section. I'm going to split that right down in half, tease the top half. Then I'm going to stitch out of that part on the top. Then I'm going to make sure that little bit of hair that was weaved out is also in the middle of the foil and the last foil. And that's when I go in and apply my product. I hope all this makes sense. Just keep continuing to watch and you will get it.
I can see the light, but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say. I'm doing my best not to run away. Sitting throwing rocks across the pavement, hoping it'll cave in and swallow me whole. Wondering how the world keeps on spinning, kinda scared of living when it unfolds. Hard to see the light when everything is dying, waiting for the clear. Thankful I'm alive, but terrified of dying. But hey, I'm still here. Is it bad? Sometimes I like it when I lose control. There's something in it that's so beautiful. Listen, I can see the light, but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say. I'm doing my best not to run away.
So now we finished the front two sections and we are now working on the back big section. Naturally, when the hair is lightened from the sun, the front is always lighter and sun-kissed and the back not as much. Then underneath, there's always a lot of depth. So for Catherine, I wanted to mimic that. So now you're going to notice I leave bigger subsections in between each foil and then I bricklay. 2 on the left, 2 on the right, back in the middle, 2 on the left, 2 on the right, and so on. Sometimes a million foils isn't always necessary, you guys, especially if we want to leave a ton of depth. Now it's up to your discretion and you can tweak it from client to client. If someone wants to be lighter, do them closer together. Placement is everything with TEASY lights.
Not
So I always get a lot of questions on why I leave my foils flat during teasy lights and fold them up during baby lights or highlights. Reason being, I always fold them up during baby lights and highlights because it gets them closer to the scalp, which actually has a lot of heat and helps them process better. And with teasy lights, I like to lay them flat like this and apply another foil on top because I'm basically hand painting in a foil just like a balayage and don't want to fold the hair up onto each other. This took about 40-45 minutes tops to foil, and you can really see how big my subsections are here in the back. This is not for everyone. Catherine was beginning to lack a lot of depth and dimension, so that's why I did it this way. This is not going to be every teasy light or every client wanting this kind of look. Like I said, there's clients who I do teasy lights on, and they're really, really, really light and blonde and bright with just a rooted look, and I'm packing them in very small with minimal subsections just like I do baby lights. So teasy lights will differ just like any other technique. It's up to your discretion on what you want to do and how you want to do it and what you want it to end up looking like in the end.
I can see the light, but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say. I'm doing my best not to run away. Sitting throwing rocks across the pavement, hoping it'll cave in and swallow me whole. Wondering how the world keeps on spinning, kinda scared of living when it unfolds. Hard to see the light when everything is dying, waiting for the clear.
So I ended up letting Catherine process for about 50 to 55 minutes to make sure everything was even and done. Keep in mind we're kicking through old permanent color from doing her roots every 3 weeks. I always do a 4NN with 20 volumes, so I needed a little extra time to make sure we kick through all that underlying pigment and that stain from that old permanent color. So I use Blommy also for this reason because it's very strong but yet gentle. So for her root smudge, that will be going down between 2 to 3 inches. I decided to use Redken Shades EQ 4N, 5N, 4NA. For her all over toner, I always use 7NB, 7P, which is my favorite caramel go-to, but she obviously had some warmth residing because of that old permanent color. So I decided to use the 7P, 7NB with also a splash of 7N and 6T. The 6T will help kick any extra brass, and the 7N will keep it all from going too icy. Now, when you're in those tones like level 6, 7, and 8, my advice is to always add a warm color and neutral with your ash. In the beginning of my career, I'd always reach for the ash and overtone, and that's really not flattering in these levels because there's a lot of red and orange. So when I would use just cool colors to get rid of the brass, which is common sense, you think, right? When I would use just cool colors to get rid of brass, it would always have silvery spots from pieces that went too ashy and then orange spots from pieces that didn't counteract enough. So my advice to you guys is always add some warmth or at the least a neutral to help balance everything out.
Thankful I'm alive, but terrified of dying. But hey, I'm still here. Is it bad sometimes? I like it when I lose control. There's something in it that's so beautiful. Listen, I can see the light, but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say.
All right, guys, it is now complete. Look at this beautiful result. Let me know what you guys think down yonder below in the comment section about this beautiful caramel color on this gorgeous Greek princess. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. Also down below, I have my new vlogging channel link. Go check it out and subscribe and hit the bell and let me know what you think about it. I will be putting up a new upload once I hit 100 subscribers. So go join the family. Let's grow that channel as well. Leave all your video ideas below in the comment section. I want to make sure I'm doing all the content you guys want to see and putting out everything you guys request. As always, I love you all so very much. And until the next one, so long for now.